This is the story of a 2-minute comedy sketch featuring Erika Kirk, the most controversial widow in American politics right now, that hit 163 million views on X alone in just 72 hours, and how the people working hardest to kill it ended up becoming its most powerful promoters. On Tuesday, March 25, 2026, a comedian named Druski posted a video with a simple caption, "How Conservative Women in America Act," and never said a single name out loud. Within 48 hours, the entire internet had filled in the silence for him, and what followed connected entertainment, politics, artificial intelligence, and social media in ways nobody expected, touching on grief, political power, a fake lawsuit, and one of the most complicated women in American public life right now. If this is your first time hearing about any of this, you are in exactly the right place. And if you already know the story, stick around because there is a lot here that most people missed completely. Before we get into it, if you enjoy breakdowns like this one, hit that like button right now because it genuinely helps this channel reach people who would want to see this. Now, let's go.
Drew Desbordes was born on September 12, 1994 in Columbia, Maryland, grew up in Gwinnett County, Georgia, and was never supposed to end up here. His original plan was to become a sportscaster. He enrolled at Georgia Gwinnett College, then transferred to Georgia Southern University as a sports analytics major, and spent most of his time there watching Steve Harvey motivational videos instead of attending class. After 2 semesters, he dropped out, moved back in with his mom, and started filming comedy skits in her living room using her furniture as the set. That was 2017. What nobody expected was what happened in the 8 years that followed. By 2025, Forbes ranked him number 9 on its list of the top-earning content creators in the world, with $14 million in earnings that year, from a man who started filming in his mother's living room with no equipment, no industry connections, and no plan. Coulda Fest, his live comedy event through Coulda Been Records, launched with a sold-out night at State Farm Arena in Atlanta, then expanded into a 10-city arena tour with every date reportedly selling out. His film work includes a cameo in House Party and a supporting role in Praise This, both in 2023. And Season 2 of his YouTube reality dating series Coulda Been Love is currently airing. But none of that is the part that matters for this story. What matters is the special effects makeup and prosthetic transformations, and what he figured out how to do with them that nobody else had cracked.
Here is the thing about the Erika Kirk skit that most people got wrong the moment they saw it. They treated it like a one-off, like Druski just decided one day to put on a blonde wig and film something. What they missed is that this video was the 3rd installment in a 7-month formula that he had been quietly perfecting, and each time he ran it, it got bigger. September 2025 was the NASCAR skit. Druski appeared in complete prosthetics and makeup as a white NASCAR fan he titled "Guy Who Is Just Proud to Be an American." The visual transformation was so complete that accusations of whiteface arrived almost immediately, while millions of others called it one of the funniest things they had seen all year. Either way, everybody watched it, and that's when the pattern started forming. Then came Monday, January 13, 2026, and the megachurch skit, a fictional televangelist ziplining onto a church stage in designer clothes, demanding $4 million in tithes, counting cash backstage. That one crossed 250 million views. Not 25 million, not 50 million, 250 million. Real pastors responded from their actual pulpits. Pastor Mike Todd from Transformation Church called the skit hilarious during a church service, while also making clear he did not believe it was aimed at him, and whether anyone believed that second part is between Pastor Todd and God. But here, my friend, is where it gets interesting. The formula became undeniable after the megachurch video. Every sketch followed the exact same structure. Elaborate physical transformation using professional-grade prosthetics, no named targets, and just enough visual specificity that the audience does the naming themselves, loudly, immediately, and at massive scale. Druski would never say who he was doing. The audience would handle that part for free.
Which brings us to Tuesday, March 25th, 2026, and the video that broke the pattern wide open. 163 million views in 72 hours. And the real shock wasn't the video itself, it was the timing. Hey, quick pause. If you are finding this interesting and you have not subscribed yet, now is literally the perfect moment. It is free, it takes 2 seconds, and you clearly have good taste in content.
2 minutes long. Druski in full prosthetics, blonde wig, white suit, blue contact lenses, white face paint. 3 scenes cycle through. A mock press conference addressing the Iran war, a faith testimony with a Bible held in hand, and a drive-through order for an organic pup cup. The clip ends with the character at a press conference declaring, "We have to protect all men in America, especially all white men in America," while a black security guard standing nearby watches with visible suspicion. Druski never says Erika Kirk's name, not once. Not even close. The caption says conservative women. The blonde wig, the white suit, the Bible, that specific political language, all of that says something considerably more precise than the caption does, and 163 million people understood exactly what it was saying without being told a single word.
And just when you think that gap between what the skit officially claimed to be and what over 100 million people understood it to mean is the story, it turns out that gap is just a doorway. What happened next is where the real story lives. Let's walk through the view count timeline because the numbers do not just tell the story, they are the story. Wednesday evening, March 25th, the sketch goes live. By Thursday morning, 22 million views. By Thursday night, 80 million. Friday brings 121 million. By Saturday, less than 72 hours after posting, 163 million views on X alone. Instagram added 3.4 million likes in under 24 hours on top of that. Now here is the number that puts all of that in perspective. The megachurch skit, the one that sent actual pastors to their pulpits, the one that crossed 250 million views, took weeks to get there. This one hit 163 million views in 72 hours.
So the question that should be sitting in your mind right now is, why did this one move that fast? Because 163 million views in 72 hours does not happen by accident. Something had to load the gun before Druski pulled the trigger, and it turns out the internet had been loading it for 2 full weeks before he ever hit post. Go ahead and subscribe if you want the answer, and also because you clearly have excellent taste in videos. Druski did not build the momentum that carried this skit. The news cycle built it for him, preloaded, 2 weeks before he posted a single frame, and here is exactly how that happened. On Wednesday, March 11th, 14 days before the skit, Erika Kirk told an audience in Arkansas not to let anyone disenfranchise you because you're a young man, especially a young white male man. That clip spread on its own and put her name, her face, and her political identity in front of millions of people who had not been paying close attention to her before that moment. Then, 5 days before the skit dropped, Joe Rogan called Kirk an odd duck on his podcast, which meant her name landed in front of an entirely new audience of millions who had maybe heard of her but had not yet formed strong opinions.
By Tuesday, March 25th, when Druski posted his sketch, Erika Kirk was already at the top of mind for a massive cross-section of the internet. The skit didn't introduce her to anybody. It arrived at the exact moment when everyone already knew who she was, already had opinions about her, and was already primed to react, loudly and at scale. But here is what nobody expected. The group that reacted the loudest was not the group that helped the skit the most. The group that tried the hardest to kill it was the group that made it immortal. And we will get to that. But first, you need to understand who Erika Kirk actually is, because without that context, none of what comes next makes sense.
Erika Kirk is 37 years old. She met Charlie Kirk in 2018 in New York City during a job interview for Turning Point USA. And before that meeting changed everything, she worked as a real estate agent for the Corcoran Group in Manhattan, handling luxury properties. She had also founded Proclaim Streetwear and Bible in 365 and hosted a podcast of her own. She and Charlie married in 2021. On Thursday, September 10, 2025, Charlie Kirk was assassinated at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah, roughly 40 miles south of Salt Lake City, while speaking at an outdoor campus debate organized by Turning Point USA. He was shot in the neck with a single bullet by a gunman positioned on a rooftop approximately 142 yards away. More than 3,000 people were in attendance that day, though officials had anticipated only around 600. The shooter, a 22-year-old named Tyler James Robinson from Washington, Utah, surrendered to the local sheriff the following day. Prosecutors charged Robinson with aggravated murder on September 16 and announced they would pursue the death penalty, citing an alleged politically motivated attack. The security failures at that event deserve their own conversation. Campus police deployed only 6 officers, flew no drone to monitor rooftops, coordinated with no local law enforcement for perimeter security, and set up no bag checks or metal detectors for an event that drew 5 times more people than expected. Utah Valley University has since begun hiring 8 new campus police officers and 2 safety managers to add to its existing force of 23 officers. 1 week after Charlie Kirk's death, Erika Kirk was named CEO of Turning Point USA. Before that announcement, she delivered a speech from the studio where her husband had recorded The Charlie Kirk Show, vowing, in her own words, that the cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry. And that, my friend, is where the contradiction that fueled everything begins. Everyone assumed that a woman who had just lost her husband would step back from public life, at least for a while. What nobody expected was that she would step forward, all the way to the top of one of the largest conservative organizations in America. And the reason that move hit so differently is because of something she said 5 months before her husband was killed. In April 2025, Erika Kirk appeared on The Charlie Kirk Show and lectured young women on what she described as the importance of being a helpmate to their husbands, rather than focusing on their own careers. Her direct words, "Your husband has to be the one that goes out into the world and builds and battles and comes home." That was April 2025. By September 2025, she was the one going out into the world and building and battling, running one of the largest conservative nonprofits in America, appearing at press conferences alongside Sarah Huckabee Sanders, endorsing J.D. Vance for the 2028 presidential election, launching the Make Heaven More Crowded tour in January 2026, kicking it off at Harvest Christian Fellowship in Riverside, California, alongside Pastor Greg Laurie. President Trump recognized her at his State of the Union address in February, calling Charlie Kirk a great friend and using the moment to condemn political violence. She attended that State of the Union as Trump's guest, seated in the House chamber while lawmakers chanted her late husband's name. In March, Trump appointed her to the U.S. Air Force Academy Board of Visitors, filling the seat her husband had previously held. By every measure, Erika Kirk became one of the most politically visible women in conservative America. And that visibility, built on a public identity that included telling women to stay home, is exactly what made her a subject for satire in the eyes of the 163 million people who watched the sketch. But the real shock wasn't the skit. It was what the people attacking the skit accidentally did to it.
Senator Ted Cruz called the skit beneath contempt. That post was viewed 10 million times. 10 million people who might not have seen the skit were now aware it existed, motivated to find it, and armed with a reason to have an opinion about it before they even pressed play. Conservative commentator John Root called Druski a despicable human being. Meghan McCain suggested some of the people involved were literally birthed in hell. Alexis Wilkins, musician and girlfriend of FBI Director Kash Patel, posted, "What a cruel, cruel world we live in." Every single one of those posts did the same thing. It put the sketch in front of an audience that had not seen it yet. Every condemnation functioned as a recommendation. Every outrage post was essentially a free advertisement, and the people trying hardest to bury it became its most effective distributors, completely by accident and with zero awareness that that was what they were doing. Supporters pushed back just as loudly. One viewer wrote that Druski's makeup and costume design team was truly undefeated across the NASCAR disguise, the mega-church pastor, and now this, and called for the entire creative team to receive an Emmy. Another user simply wrote, "Comedy is allowed to be all things, including offensive, dark, and tacky. Don't watch."
As of the time of reporting, Erika Kirk has not commented on the video publicly. Neither has Turning Point USA. And just when everyone thought the story had peaked, that is exactly when it got strange in a way that nobody saw coming. If you are still watching and have not liked this video yet, this is your sign. The like button has been sitting there patiently this whole time. Give it something to do. Here is the impossible moment of this entire story, the one that made people put their phones down and stare. Grok, the AI chatbot built directly into X, the platform where the sketch was living, was shown images from the skit by curious users, and Grok looked at a man in a blonde wig, white face paint, a white suit, and blue contact lenses, cross-referenced those images against its database of real-world photos, and identified the person in the video as the real Erika Kirk, not as a parody, not as a comedian, as the actual person. According to a Forbes report, the system matched the spoof to publicly available photos of Kirk and failed to recognize the content as satire at all. Other AI models responded differently. Some declined to identify the person, others flagged the images as potentially manipulated. But Grok, built into the platform where 163 million people were watching the video, told users the man in costume was a real woman. That single Grok exchange, captured in screenshots and shared across X, pulled over 700,000 views on its own. What that moment revealed is worth sitting with. AI systems trained on enormous amounts of real-world data looked at a man in a blonde wig and white face paint and could not reliably identify it as satire. Whether that says more about the quality of Druski's prosthetic transformation or the current limits of AI image recognition is a genuinely open question, but either way, it kept the story alive for another full news cycle. And then, before that cycle could close, something even more absurd arrived. Everyone thought the story had reached its ceiling. What nobody expected was a fabricated legal document. A fake cease and desist letter began circulating on X, claiming Erika Kirk had sent legal notice to Druski and was preparing to sue him. The letter looked real enough that writer Zeli Imani shared a post making the claim, and before anyone could verify a single word of it, that fabricated letter racked up nearly 1 million views. Newsweek debunked it. A representative for Druski confirmed directly, any claim that a cease and desist was issued to Druski is absolutely false. No legal action has been taken, no legal action has been threatened. But by the time the debunk circulated, hundreds of thousands of people had already encountered the original claim, believed it, shared it, and moved on. The fake lawsuit became its own chapter in the story, adding fuel, extending the conversation, and pulling in people who had not been following any of it until the word lawsuit appeared in their timeline.
That is how a 2-minute video about a pup cup and a Bible ends up staying in the news cycle for a week straight. Not because of anything in the video itself, but because of everything the internet built around it. Here's something that gets lost when people frame this as a simple left versus right story. The skepticism around Erika Kirk's rise was already coming from inside the building before Druski ever posted a single frame. The University of Arkansas's Turning Point USA chapter released a statement disavowing the organization entirely.
With former chapter president Dino Fantagrassi writing directly, "Charlie Kirk cannot speak for himself anymore, and we do not recognize the way others have attempted to speak for him." That was not a liberal critique. That was a TPUSA chapter, from within the movement, from people who had given their time to the organization, saying publicly that something had gone wrong. And then there's Candace Owens, a former TPUSA commentator releasing a multi-part YouTube documentary series titled Bride of Charlie, focused entirely on Erika Kirk. One related video titled "Did Erika Kirk Know Jeffrey Epstein?" has been viewed 1.9 million times. That is not a fringe question buried on an obscure channel. That is a former conservative media figure with a massive audience asking explosive questions about the woman now running the organization they once shared. In early 2026, a doctored clip of Joe Rogan's podcast went viral, falsely implying Kirk had moved on to a new relationship just months after Charlie's death. Manipulated, untrue, widely shared anyway, reflecting how thoroughly her personal life had become a subject of public speculation far beyond anything resembling normal political commentary. When Druski's skit landed on top of all of that, it did not start a conversation. It walked into one that had already been going for months and turned up the volume to a level nobody had heard before. A lot of the debate around this video collapsed a distinction that matters. So let's be precise about what the sketch actually does and does not do. Druski's skit does not mock Erika Kirk's grief. It does not reference Charlie Kirk's death. It says nothing about her loss, her widowhood, or the personal tragedy she has lived through. The caption says "Conservative Women in America," and the 2-minute runtime covers Iran policy, a faith testimony, and a drive-through order for an organic pup cup. The target is a public political persona, the press conference confidence, the faith-forward branding, the specific political language about protecting white men, the organic lifestyle signaling. That is a public performance, and political performances have been subject to parody for as long as political performances have existed. Whether the timing felt appropriate, given that her husband was killed just months earlier, is a fair and legitimate question that reasonable people have genuinely disagreed on. But the claim that the skit crossed into mocking someone's personal grief is not supported by anything that is actually in the video. That nuance disappeared almost immediately into the outrage cycle, and that disappearance is part of why the story kept generating new chapters long after the initial reaction should have faded. So why did a 2-minute comedy video with no names in it, a caption about conservative women, and a pup cup drive-through end up at 163 million views in 72 hours? Because everything aligned at once, and none of it was coincidence. Druski had spent 7 months building a formula that was specifically designed to do exactly what it did: elaborate transformations using professional-grade special effects makeup, no named targets, enough visual specificity that the audience completes the joke themselves. He had already proven twice that the formula could go nuclear. His team knew precisely what they were constructing. Erika Kirk had spent those same 7 months stepping into one of the most visible and contested positions in American conservative politics, while being on record promoting a worldview about women staying home that she was visibly not following herself. That contradiction had been simmering publicly for months before the video dropped. 2 weeks before the skit posted, the news cycle struck a match for him. The Arkansas speech, then the Joe Rogan comment, and delivered a primed, activated audience directly to his content. Then the backlash poured gasoline on everything. Senator Cruz posting to 10 million people, conservative commentators calling Druski despicable, every condemnation functioning as a viewing invitation. Then AI could not tell what was real. Then a fake lawsuit spread to nearly 1 million people before anyone debunked it. Then internal TPUSA fractures got pulled back into the conversation. Then Candace Owens' Bride of Charlie documentary view counts started circulating alongside the skit's own numbers. By the time the story was fully in motion, it had stopped being about a comedy video. It became a debate about power and public persona and political performance and the distance between what people say they believe and what they actually do when belief gets tested. It became about who gets to be satirized and when and by whom. It became about whether AI can distinguish a comedian in a blonde wig from the actual person being spoofed. It became about how fast a fabricated lawsuit travels compared to the debunk that chases it. Druski posted 2 minutes of video and never said a single name. The world spent a week filling in the silence he left.
That is why it became too real. Not because he pushed it there, but because reality had already done most of the construction. He just showed up with the wig. And here is the question nobody has fully answered yet. If a 2-minute video with no names can do all of that, what happens the next time someone decides to run the same formula on someone even bigger? If this video gave you something to think about, hit like, drop your take in the comments, and subscribe so you are here when we cover the next one, because this channel finds the stories that are always about more than they first appear.